Well, it's like it's different. So like what they think of as cool in a lightsaber is different, right? So like the lightsaber build experience at the park, right? Super cool, really immersive, absolutely fantastic. We didn't do it because the lightsaber that you get is like it's okay. It's fine.
So if I'm understanding correctly, you're literally the parent going, "Yeah, but we have lightsabers at home."
Right.
Not wrong.
Not wrong, though. Just a reminder, this is a spoiler-heavy podcast. Different series that require a spoiler warning will be in the description. Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Gaming Theater Podcast. Today's episode is a special episode that is going to be about a brief history and the philosophy of lightsabers. Now, to get into ourselves with some lightsabers, I've got some guests with us to help talk us through this, and I'll introduce us real quick. Once again, my name is Leo. I also go by the name Geek Scorpio, and I will be your host this evening. And over to my right is going to be...
Hi, my name is Dane. I go by DandDaine on the internet. I'm a Twitch streamer, an award-winning DM, and a student of Shaolin Kung Fu. And you've probably heard me on other GTP episodes. If you listen to us, go check them out. They're awesome.
Yeah. And also to their right is going to be...
Oh, it's me!
Yes.
Hey, I'm Kate. Also known as KO Glasson is my art name. I'm also a student of Shaolin Kung Fu as well as Tai Chi. Been doing that for 5 years. Woohoo! It's taken over my life.
Nice.
I'm serious.
It does that.
On top of that, I do some Etsy stuff, general crafty stuff. So yeah, it's lots of fun.
Over to Kate's right is going to be...
I'm your friendly neighborhood master, Alan. I am Level Up Light 1 on TikTok, as long as TikTok still exists. Level Up Light on the Instagram. And if you look for Level Up Sabers, that is the easiest way to find me on all of the various places. I don't know what all of those places are going to be, because that's sort of what happens when you're running a small business and you have to create social media content for that business. But I'm going to be in those places. And I am usually Level Up Light or Level Up Sabers.
All right. And with that being said, let's go ahead and take a quick trip over to the Magical Merch Booth. So here we are in the Magical Merch Booth, and today we have Master Alan, who, as you know, has been doing some stuff with lightsabers. Tell us a little bit about that.
I am a martial arts instructor since the late 1900s. Somewhere in the 2000 teens, I made a shift with my sword class. So I know I look it. I'm a quarter Japanese. My grandmother's originally from Okinawa. I had teachers in high school that did not realize my sister and I were siblings because my sister looks like mom and I look like dad with brown eyes. And so there were a whole bunch of teachers that had both of us that did not find out we were siblings until after I graduated, so that both of our parents were at the parent-teacher conferences.
Genetics are crazy.
It's just,
Yeah, genetics go hard.
no.
Nature be scary. Wow.
She got the good skin, she got the nice hair, all that other stuff. I got like lactose intolerant and allergic to cats, and it's just like,
The beard's pretty immaculate, though. Gotta
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
very Okinawan. But so I had a lot of trouble with retention in my sword class, and so I was teaching a kenjutsu style that was kind of a hodgepodge of a lot of stuff that I had trained in. And if I took a bokken, if I took a wooden sword and I handed it to somebody and said, "Okay, pretend this is a sword," most people could get 80% of the way there and be fine. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then I discovered that there were lightsabers that you could duel with, and I got a few to kind of experiment with them. And if you hand a lightsaber to somebody and say, "Pretend this is a lightsaber," they are a 9-year-old again.
Fact.
Yes,
if the lightsaber doesn't make noise, it doesn't matter. They are. If the lightsaber does make noise, doesn't matter. Now it's in stereo. And the lightsaber's doing its thing too. Like, it's just what it is, right? And so that was kind of the genesis of The website was taking the curriculum I was teaching, turning it into videos, putting that behind a paywall, and welcome to the internet. Okay.
Yeah.
COVID happens, and for all of you that remember that, because at this point we're coming up on 5 years ago, that was kind of rough on the martial arts industry. Just it was tough. Like I went from in the 23 years I had worked at the dojo prior to the COVID event. We had talked about closing the dojo one time, maybe two in all of that time, at least that I was aware of. And we had that conversation 4 times in a week. And then several other times afterwards, because it was just like, what are we going to do?
Yep.
How are we going to do this? How are we going to take payments? All kinds of things. And so amidst my anxiety and insecurity and despondency around that, I got to audition some manufacturers. I ordered some samples and got a bunch of different lightsabers from different manufacturers sent to me. And I made myself a little list of what things were most important for my class. And I chose a lightsaber supplier. And then I put an e-commerce portion on the website so that I could sell those lightsabers to my students and maybe kind of like, just like turn that into a little bit of something. And then I went viral on TikTok and my life got complicated. And with the news of the world at the moment, potentially my life is about to get more simple. I don't know. We're going to find out. It's going to be an adventure. I'm ready for adventures. That's like half the point of doing tabletop. Right? If you want to use a lightsaber, then like you're ready for adventures, because otherwise what's the point?
Yeah.
Right? You know? But that's kind of it. And now I've gone to conventions and I've gotten to meet people in person, and you know, I was at AwesomeCon in 2024, which is in DC, and somebody bought the Graflex lightsaber from me as they were rushing to their photo with Hayden Christensen so that they could have him sign it. Like, you know, and so like I've gotten to be part of some of those things. My kids don't think of lightsabers as cool because they're just like everywhere. And so like
they don't know.
Well, it's like it's different. So like what they think of as cool in a lightsaber is different, right? So like the lightsaber build experience at the park, right? Super cool, really immersive, absolutely fantastic. We didn't do it because the lightsaber that you get is like it's okay. It's fine.
So if I'm understanding correctly, you're literally the parent going, "Yeah, but we have lightsabers at home."
Right.
Not wrong.
But it's also like I'm not the parent going, "We have lightsabers at home." It's they ask uncomfortable questions in front of people whose job it is to not. It's like, why doesn't it change color? Why can't it do rainbow? Why is it so heavy? Like,
and then just to make sure that our listeners understand, are these common features in your lightsabers?
I do it in radio announcer voice, I don't. It's for whatever reason I can stay in character better.
Whatever's comfortable.
I am your friendly neighborhood Master Allen with Level Up Sabers, the only lightsaber guaranteed better than a stick. All Level Up Sabers come equipped with color change at no additional charge. Full spectrum color change, so everything except for gray, black, and brown. Level Up Sabers are now compatible with the Xeno Configurator app, which allows you to cycle through the many features of the Level Up Sabers lightsaber just like from an app on your phone, so you don't have to like, because there's so much stuff now, because they have like pulse and unstable and crackle and all this stuff, and it's a lot to have to navigate by the button. It didn't used to be a lot, and it's a lot now. And so now you just like turn on your phone and you're just like, I want a rainbow blade. I want to turn the brightness up. I want to turn the brightness down. I want to make the blade go out faster. I want to make it go slower. Like, it's just like all the things. And then you plug it in and it tells you that it's charging. And then when there's like 15 of them all plugged in your garage and you're getting ready to go inside and they are all done charging all at the same time, they all go ready all at the same time, and like try really hard not to crap yourself. And then, you know, go inside and like have a moment of like relative whatever. But that's the lightsaber, because like all of those features, and like those of us that have been in like been lightsaber collectors or enthusiasts or whatever for a while. Like a whole bunch of that is like, wow. But like, given the state of technology at the moment, like that's all, like they're kids' toys that do that stuff out of the box and run on 2 AAA batteries. Like it's like none of that is all that huge. And so there are certain companies that like all of those things are upcharges, or you have to buy a thing to put into your lightsaber so that it can change to one of like 4 color options or whatever. And it's just like, why? I shouldn't be able to exist. My lunch money should have already been taken from me, along with all manner of other things. And the reason why it's not, I honestly couldn't tell you. Because, like, why is it so heavy? Why can't you hit things very hard with it? Why doesn't it change color? Why can you see the individual lights inside the tube? Like, why aren't the lights bright enough that, like, you can't see them independently? Like, you know, there's just like all those things.
Good questions for your kids to be asking. And I mean,
Which I get, I get it.
Yeah.
Sure. But especially
Does it
when
do
you're a
rainbow?
student-
No, it doesn't do rainbow. It's okay.
Yeah.
So we built the droid. It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, just as fun of an experience, right?
Mhm.
All right. And with that, I'm going to have those links all in the description for that.
Do the things that you do. I trust you.
That being said, let's go ahead and get on with the show. So here we are at today's episode about lightsabers. So lightsabers are very much a nerdy thing, but also super cool at the same
A
time.
weapon for a more civilized age,
Yeah.
I hear.
Exactly. So to bring back to the origins of lightsabers, even from the production side, the guy you might know, George Lucas, wanted to make this movie. It's a little thing called Star Wars. Heard of it once?
George Lucas, who wrote a story where the main character is Luke Skywalker, Luke S.
Yep. Nailed
Okay.
it. Solved that riddle. He was ready to go. So when he made it, he was
The one where the guy that's invading the ship, his name's Darth Vader, like the dark clad figure that's invading. He's Darth Vader, right? Next you're going to tell me that like the hotshot pilot guy that likes to fly solo is like, I don't know, like Han all by myself is his name or something. Like,
Yep.
But only if we had a shorter name. I think that would work.
yeah.
Yeah.
We'll figure
4
that out
letters,
later.
maybe.
Well, they'll fix it in post. It'll be
They'll
fine.
fix it
Yeah,
in post. They'll
yeah,
fix it in
yeah.
post.
As a brief note, as we're kind of getting into George Lucas and his work, have any of you seen THX 1138?
I have.
It's his first film.
That's his
Well,
first
not his
film,
but
and then
the film he made before Star Wars.
I have not seen it. I have seen
It's not
American
good.
Graffiti. The
I
movie
appreciate the nod to it that they did in Fanboys. That is,
Yes.
That's all I'm going to
Oh my
say.
God,
I'm just
yes.
going to leave it at that and just
Yeah. If you haven't seen it, it's not really like it's worth watching if you're into that sort of thing, but it's
If
a
you're a
mess.
super film buff, it's worth watching.
It's niche.
but
it's
but you
niche.
can definitely see like where he had some things already laid out in front of him, and he was like, "What if I took these and changed them and put them into this
Mhm.
box?" You know, like the stormtroopers are basically in THX. They look a little different, they act a little different, but they're basically there.
One,
So,
like
I just
the commentary on fascism is the commentary on fascism. Like that part,
True.
you know.
Space
And
Nazis.
yes.
The other thing about George Lucas, and like regardless of how you feel about him as a filmmaker, George Lucas's style as a filmmaker is to go through the scrap bin of stuff that people did really well and give it a new paint job. And sometimes the stuff that somebody did really well is like a Greek tragedy from centuries ago. And sometimes it's like a World War II movie that was super obscure, but he really loved it. And so, like, it's like...
The amount of
Absolutely.
Kurosawa films that he's got that he knows under his belt is ridiculous.
There's a World War II movie that is about there was a type of bomb that was used during World War II that basically worked like a skipping stone, and so it was used to attack bridges and dams, and so it's this night fighter kind of a thing. It's like halfway between a fighter and a bomber, that it has this weird contraption that drops a bomb so that it spins and then it hits the water and skips across the water.
Yeah.
There's a scene from a movie that is about some of these pilots, including like this new kid that is on his very first run, and the end sequence, the attack on the Death Star, there are so many things that it's just shot for shot with Star Wars paint job. Like even like the locations of these anti-aircraft guns, that's where the little turbo laser turrets are. It's just like the pecking on the surface line, just right. Just.
But did this young hotshot used to bullseye womp rats in his T-16 back home? That's what we need to know.
That's what we need to know. So, with that, though, this, so in the 60s and 70s, when it comes to film, and I'll do a whole episode about film and their decades at some point in time in the future, because this is the auteur film era, which is the late 60s all the way to the 70s. And so, if you had a good hit film, as a director, you can do things that you can convince studios to work and be very much mindful of what you have control. This is what happened with Godfather. This was what happened to even other ones like Smokey and the Bandit. It was very director written on that. So he makes a movie called American Graffiti, and it does really well. It does well.
It does well.
I'll be honest, not one of my favorite movies, but I did watch the whole thing. But it does well.
It's like it's what it is. It's like it's a snapshot of an era that people were incredibly nostalgic for, that people are still incredibly nostalgic for, and so like it makes sense why it was a hit at its time, especially. Like,
it was a snapshot of the 1950s car.
For those of you that saw Dazed and Confused in the 90s, like it was the same. Like it's like
you get that
same kind of like it's just this like it's this nostalgia delivery system that like.
But from the success of American Graffiti, Fox decides, okay, we will let you do your next movie. Cool. I'm going to do this thing about a war in the stars. I'll come up with a better name later. Star Wars. Nailed it. So he makes Star Wars, and Star Wars itself has this whole production thing on it, but one of the things that he really wanted to, especially with his influences with Kurosawa films, is make things like to have samurai is sort of a basis of things, where they would have swords that's on there. Originally, in the original designs for it, it was everybody was supposed to get a lightsaber. Like if you were a nobleman, you got a lightsaber. If
people carried them around instead of blasters because it was like a sword. It was like it was that kind of.
It was that kind of nobility on that one.
Yeah. That's the world I want to live in. It sounds great.
And then at some point he realized it's expensive to make lightsabers in the 1970s. So much so they're like, okay, we'll just break it down to 2 guys on that. And
Two's good.
Two's good, right? Two's good.
I mean, what if we had a third guy that replaces one of the older guys?
No, only 2. 2. If they want to use lightsabers so bad, they can borrow one.
Okay.
And that's what happens.
And I mean, I get it, right? Like, I love Hidden Fortress and Seven Samurai as much as the next guy. So, like, it makes perfect sense to me. You see these amazing, groundbreaking films, and you're like, that is what I want. More of that, please. But now
there's also there's also already a ton of people that redid Kurosawa movies in different the Yojimbo Fistful of Dollars one is like the example that people know really well. If you've seen The Man with No Name movies by Clint Eastwood, the first one is Fistful of Dollars, and it is based on Yojimbo, which was the samurai movie by Akira Kurosawa. But there was it might have been the early 2000s, it might have been the 90s. There's a Bruce Willis movie called Last Man Standing. It's sort of like Prohibition paint job, same story. And it's been done several times. Like Kurosawa was this like massively influential filmmaker in a whole bunch of genres. And he had the misfortune of being famous and like alternating between having a hit and then having duds. And so towards like the end of his career, it was really hard for him to make movies because all the Japanese movie studios were tired of banking on him because he was also due for a flop. Like that was like,
oh yeah, you can't have that many hits without, being, what is it? Most people will remember Sam Raimi from Evil Dead 2 and from Spider-Man trilogy. Most people don't forget that he's gone through like duds and duds and duds. Even Evil Dead 2 was made because the movies after Evil Dead 1 was all duds. And he's like, I'll go back to the well on this one, I guess.
That's like that's movies. It is
that's the
like
nature of it.
incredibly unpredictable, and there are so many things externally that like you can have a really good movie, and because of stuff that is outside of your control, like who you're opening against, or like a bad storm on your opening weekend, or major geopolitical events, like there's all kinds of stuff that can just like, nope, you're sunk.
Weird Al was talking about it once. It was UHF was supposed to be the best movie, and it's a hilarious movie, and it's super funny. Except it came out on the worst possible summer blockbuster after blockbuster after blockbuster when it came out.
It was the company that made UHF. I love this. Like I love this thing you're alluding to. So the company that made it, it was like this screen tested higher than any movie we have ever released. Like this is like this screen tested amongst the most successful films that we have released. And then it goes into theaters the same weekend as RoboCop, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and one other like super massive movie. So like same weekend, it's out there like, it's just like, no, guys, I'm a superhero too. And it's like Superman, Juggernaut, and the Hulk. And it's just like, no, guys, I can punch really hard. That's great, Iron Fist.
Like, you sure can, buddy. How's that dragon doing?
You're good.
Oh my gosh.
That's apt.
That's apt for this.
Yes.
Still good, still awesome, different league. Just,
Yeah. Heroes for Hire, Avengers, like
different leagues.
I love the Heroes for Hire.
Some people play in AAA. Like sometimes that's where you get. Like that's where your skills bring you.
Yeah.
Oh man.
We've already got Shang-Chi. He's the master of martial arts. Like, sorry, we're all set.
Exactly.
We're good.
That movie was. I realize we're here to talk about Star Wars, but Shang-Chi was everything I wanted the Iron Fist TV show to be.
Me too.
Yeah.
I really, my own personal opinion, and get in the comments if you disagree, or if you agree, I don't care. But I really feel like if they had gotten another season, we might have seen like the level of Iron Fist that I was hoping we would get to.
They were getting
They
better.
need a different actor.
I
Sorry.
mean, you're not wrong. I heard a rumor, right? I have no knowledge of this. This is
so like you guys have watched a lot of martial arts movies, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, here's how you know they need a different actor. Okay, when you watch a lot of martial arts movies, here's the scene that you were used to seeing. You are looking over the shoulder of the stunt double onto the face of the hero, and so there's person closer to the camera here, and the back of their head is there, and then the face of your principal is over the shoulder of the stunt double as the hero does something.
Yeah.
All of the fight scenes in Iron Fist are backwards. You are always looking at the villain instead of the hero, because you are always looking over the shoulder of a stunt double instead of at the principal actor.
Oh, I didn't
did
even
hear a
realize
rumor.
Yeah, it's like
It doesn't
That
excuse
makes
the
sense,
second, but like the first season of Iron Fist, I heard a rumor that there was some casting issues, and they had to very quickly pivot to somebody who had negligible martial arts training. I've even heard the scuttlebutt being that they found him like doing yoga in a park somewhere. I don't know if that's true, right? This is all hearsay and whatnot.
But there's
But like it would inform some
He was
of
on
his
Game of
form.
Thrones, right?
I think so.
Like
there was the Japanese villain that they could have cast really easy, and he actually had martial arts experience. But no,
Well, like, I get wanting to tell a Danny Rand story as opposed to one of the other Iron Fists. Like that does make some sense to me, given the Heroes for Hire look that they were going for. But like, could you just find like no hate to the actor? I'm sure he did as best a job as he could, given
what he
his
got. Yeah.
situation.
there's been some interesting quotes about that since they have gotten farther away from.
Ooh. I'll have to look into that. But yeah, it is a shame because I love the Iron Fist in the comic books, and it's too bad. But
I'm a white dude that's been doing martial arts since 1993. Iron Fist, I injected it into my veins.
Yeah.
Like I was so excited about that. I was excited about that on the level that some people are currently excited about the Spider-Man trailer, because the Spider-Man or Superman trailer, because like that Superman trailer looks freaking awesome. It looks like a great Superman story. I've never been a huge Superman person, but I totally understand everybody's joy, and I'm experiencing all of the the excitement that people have for that. That is where I was with Iron Fist.
Yeah.
I guess
felt
I
the same
didn't
way.
know
I mean,
Iron Fist before the TV series, so for me it was just coming in
Oh.
and I was like, wow, what is this? This is awful.
yeah,
The
it is
comics
whether
are
you
better.
come in before or after. But no, honestly, like Daughters of the Dragon, Heroes for Hire, both amazing comic book runs. They all take place in the same area. They all know each other. You know, Colin
There-
Wing.
There
all
are
so good.
aspects of digging into Iron Fist where like there's a fuck ton of white savior and there's a whole lot of like tropes that are a problem, and there's not a way around that. But Shang-Chi has the same issue. Like basically anything Marvel does that is Asian adjacent, like it's like that's just what it is. And that's one of those things that it's like if that's something that you can't fuck with, then like know that going in, because like, you know, skip it. But if it's something that you're like, okay, I can allow this to be an aspect of its time and then engage with the story without the like having to dissect the problematic stuff, like it's like they're incredibly enjoyable. But that was one of those things where it was like when I was a little bit older, I understood the world a little bit better, and I heard some stories about my mom about like, you know, stuff that she experienced growing up and other things like that caused me to have sort of a come to Jesus moment with Iron Fist a little bit. But like I was able to hold on because you know, like stuff, but that's the other thing. Anybody listening, if you haven't done Iron Fist before and you're kind of like on the fence, like understand as you go into like the origins of that character, like it's just what it is.
Just what it is.
And I will say, if that's not to your taste, right? If Danny Rand is not the Iron Fist you want, there are a couple other Iron Fists out there that may fit.
They have improved. They have improved.
Swordmaster being one of them. Most recently, with Marvel Rivals being out, a lot of people are being like, "Oh, who's this Swordmaster Iron Fist?" I thought this guy was Iron Fist, and I'm like, "Oh, it's awesome! Go check it out."
Yeah, I haven't gotten to play it yet, but like when I saw that was a character, I was just like,
I did the same thing.
Yeah,
so good. Leo, can we have everybody here back for like a martial arts Marvel podcast maybe sometime?
Yeah, I have to do some legwork, but I think we'll do that.
Oh yeah, we were
Doesn't have to be
supposed to
anytime
talk
soon.
about Star Wars, huh?
Sometime. Like I'm just saying.
for
like,
right now,
there seems to be an energy here, but so lightsabers, right?
Yeah.
Lightsabers,
well,
kind
funny
of like
enough,
swords.
Marvel. So
do people
you wanna
like
take Marvel
lightsabers? Is
Candid-
that like a thing?
I've heard that there's like a couple of people who do kind of like lightsabers.
Okay,
So
Maybe you should look. I don't mean, it could be something.
there might be something there. Like I'll have to look into that.
to be fair, Star Wars is a Marvel property. In the 70s and 80s, the comics were done by Marvel for it.
And still are. Like there's the IDW and Marvel runs. Like,
and most of them are pretty good.
Parent company, Marvel. Like you know,
you guys should reach out to Daniel Jose Older. He's on TikTok and Instagram. Super accessible, and he's one of the writers for a bunch of the new High Republic Star Wars stuff.
Oh, I love the High Republic.
Super good dude. Super
Dane,
good.
take
dude.
a note.
I will pick Master Allen's brain for other people we can have on an even crazier podcast
Even
later.
crazier. But back to the tale of yours. So George Lucas, back when he's making this, he has to produce this, and so he has to make lightsabers for literally two people, Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi. And Obi-Wan Kenobi gets to share his lightsaber with Luke because they got the sharesies. We don't have enough.
Because sharing is caring.
And sharing is caring.
That's true.
So
Very care.
in the original trailer, if you can find it, and I mean the second trailer, the original trailer is literally the word Star Wars, and that's about it for the original movie. So
It is the
second
teaser trailer.
Is the teaser trailer.
Less is more.
That's because they didn't have anything. It was hilarious. But
They barely had a name.
They had a title card. That was what they had, and so they made it look cool.
so the original lightsabers were actually all white because they were supposed to be glowing light, except it didn't look right when they did that, and so they added different colors for that. I believe, and they added colors in some kind of in the type of post, which is post in the 70s, which is a mess and a half. There's a reason why we have so few science fiction movies in the 70s, not because they're not written, but because until you get to the 80s, it is hard to make. Literally, there
were a bunch of special effects that Star Wars had to invent in order to make Star Wars. If you're not familiar, making the lightsaber glow literally involved a dude with a razor blade scratching the film so that more light could come through, and then they would do a color layer.
Oh
It
yeah,
was during the rotoscoping process, right?
it was all
Yeah.
rotoscoped for that, and so like, and we talked about this in our animation episodes. Rotoscoping is beautiful and a pain in the butt because you have to redraw after you filmed it already, over line by line,
Frame by frame
by frame
by
by
frame.
frame.
And so it's just like,
Done. Next. Done.
Shout out to you artists out there. Good job, y'all.
part of the reason why it looks weird with the white, and so like part of the reason why it looks weird is because the nature of how they make them, they don't cast light. And so the blade, when they looked white, they looked super bright, but they had no like environmental impact at all. So that's why it looked weird. And by making them colors so that it was darker, it didn't look as out of place.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that was part of the thing they had to do. And I think it's he came up with blue for good guys, red for bad guys. That makes sense in my head.
Color coding.
Ta-da!
Well, I think that one of the original lightsabers is actually like a rod that just had blades spinning on it to create a light cascading effect. But the problem is, like, they would, when they were dueling, and we'll get into this. So one of the first styles, fighting styles that they went to with for choreography was kendo, because it's very direct, very I don't want to say slow movements because it's not.
It's samurai inspired, so it was
Yeah.
easy segue. And
Yeah.
Allen Guinness is not a young man at this point.
Oh no.
And so he needs something that's not tremendously acrobatic. And they didn't discover until they were doing the choreography that in Vader's costume, he cannot lift his hands above his face
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yep.
because of the cowl, the way the shoulders are. And so when you watch him in the choreography in the original trilogy, everything's very like, it's all right here.
Mm-hmm. It's
And
all
then
right
when
to
they
the
get-
chest level.
Yeah, and then when they get to Empire Strikes Back, there's a whole lot of disguising with where the camera is placed and other things, where all Vader is doing is
Mm-hmm. Just moving
with
up
one
and
hand
down.
on it, because he's got slightly more range of motion, and a lot of times his body is kind of turned.
Mhm.
He's
And
just
but
that
in a
strong
way
with
that
force.
And I
He doesn't need his shoulders.
Well, it's because his limbs are robotic. You know, they restrict his movements. That's why he doesn't do any of the forms that he did in the prequels, right? Yeah.
and that also becomes a thing where like once you know that that's how it looks, it's really hard to not like it's hard to unsee it.
Oh yeah, it's very much
Yeah.
like what is it?
You know how the sausage gets made.
Which is like, and it's one of the things. But the other aspect of it is, and I like bringing it up, is in Empire Strikes Back especially. And so like for many people, the Empire Strikes Back fight is their favorite fight from the original trilogy.
And it's classy. I like it a lot.
It's like it there's a lot of the fight travels through a lot of set. And so like it has a feeling of epicness. The soundtrack is perfect. The struggle leading up to the big reveal, Luke, no, I am your father, right? Like, you know, but all that stuff. So like there's all those components that make that a fight that people love like the most amongst Star Wars in general. The way that they had to disguise how limited Vader's movement is within the suit, like it's masterful. It is masterful because they have him like at the top of a set of steps. They have him like slightly out of frame and turned sideways, but the way the camera's angled, like you don't notice, oh hey, he's not really moving. Like unless you are looking at it to try to kind of break down the choreography.
Yeah.
And it's like and like so the way that they structured it, like the fight team was fantastic. The like the way that they placed and moved characters and forced perspective was brilliant. And this is not to say that in Return of the Jedi they didn't face the same problems and solve them in a satisfactory way, because they absolutely did. But like Empire Strikes Back, it is so hard when you are designing a fight to be bound like that. And they did such an amazing job.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you have the limitations for it, and this is why you will see fight scenes go change from one era of the Star Wars to the next, because once they start getting into other ways and production ways of getting these done, they move on. So it starts with kendo. Then in Empire, it was more based around fencing and such. And it might be rumored. I might have just found this as a rumor or not. I think they had to change around Darth Vader's stunt double to make sure that they actually knew how to use fencing or sword combat, so they wouldn't break as many of these things when they were making it. But they redesigned the entirety of their lightsabers for it. And then you get on to Return of the Jedi, where they could do even more stuff with that.
Because the technology had come so much farther.
Mhm.
And so the lightsabers could do more stuff, cameras could do more stuff. Like there was just so many advances.
Mhm.
You know, and then we fast forward to the prequels, and like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon has changed the way that Hollywood does fight scenes forever.
Exactly.
We did get a force kick in Return of the Jedi, though.
We did.
So
Mhm.
it's my favorite. It's my favorite. One of my favorite scene in that movie, I think.
That is my favorite gift to post whenever anybody is complaining about any fight scene that they don't like stylistically.
Mhm.
People talk about like, wow, this isn't realistic, and realistic is just such a nebulous term. You guys are all martial artists, right? Like,
Yeah.
this fight lasted longer than 6 seconds. It's not realistic. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most
You know,
real fights just look like a mess.
Yeah.
this boxing match doesn't look like a real boxing match. They're 8 miles apart. Like this. When you're boxing somebody, you're close enough to bite them. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one guy did.
Ask Mike Tyson.
that's Holyfield.
Yeah. True. Probably better that way.
But so stylistically, like Star Wars has gone through many styles of choreography, like you were just talking about, because the choreography from A New Hope to Empire Strikes Back is very, very different. The difference between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi is a little bit more, it's a little bit more nominal. But you look at Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi compared to Phantom Menace, and we have a professional martial artist as a principal for the first time in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah. Oh,
And
Ray
so
Park did such an amazing job.
Asian inspired story. First martial artist as a principal in the 4th movie.
Yeah. You know, to kind of go along with that, I really enjoyed the way that they've played with the way that lightsaber fighting is done, like from a choreography standpoint. You know, the Star Wars Visions, I know, is animated, of course, so they can kind of draw them however they want to. But I really enjoyed, the lightsaber umbrella. Hey, are we getting one of those on the store anytime soon?
I mean, you
Wasn't
could
that
already
Blade
do
Runner?
that. Like, it wouldn't be that
fair.
hard.
That's true. No,
It would be heavy as hell. But
Yes, it would.
That's just an engineering problem. Like, if you want 6 lightsabers and you want to put them on a post and then spin them around, like that's.
I don't not want that, you know?
I was trying to remember, but it's Ray Park. He plays the original.
Ray Park is
correct.
Yeah,
And Ray
Scottish
Park
martial artist. Like,
and
phenomenal.
He does
dude.
a lot of great choreography.
Yeah.
Like he was just there to be able to be towed for the X-Men, and that requires a lot of agility to
Headless Horseman in Sleepy Hollow, ton of other stuff, like really good martial artist, stuntman, whole bit, like incredibly talented, and like a compact guy, so that like there's certain things that if you're shorter look cooler, because the camera doesn't provide perspective on how big or not big people are if you film right. And so, like, it's like somebody that's shorter, you can do things where they're like you're creating more space between you and the ground, so it just looks neater than like somebody that is taller. When you jump, you don't create the same visual of space between you and the ground. It doesn't look as impressive, and so there's just like all kinds of little things that, and just so acrobatic and etc. I mean, less so now because Father Time and Mother Nature are undefeated, but.
You guys are
Ray
so
Park,
deep into
phenomenal.
like the filmmaking nerddom that I am learning so much right now. I thought we were just going to be talking about Star Wars lore, but
they are all going to
it can be
they're
that-
all related to each other.
The answer to
too.
every Star Wars lore question is because reasons.
Yeah.
Like that's the problem. Like it's
Honestly, that's relative to lightsabers. Lightsabers originally didn't start as because he is true to the Force and a Jedi where he has this blue lightsaber. No.
His father before him.
I needed the lights to work right. But sure, the genius thing is adding that in later, making them
in Star Wars canon, right, Leo?
What?
In Star Wars canon.
In Star Wars canon.
The history of the lightsaber in Star Wars canon.
In Star Wars canon.
still really nebulous.
I mean, it
Like,
is.
still
Very,
really nebulous.
very true.
Um,
Very true.
But they tried to keep that canon going because it's a famous in I think it's Phantom Menace when he talks, or Phantom Menace or the second movie or episode 2.
Phantom Menace is where they like the rule
No, when
of
Mace
two.
Windu is there. Is what was it?
Well, so Mace Windu,
Midi-chlorians.
so like Mace Windu's toy for Phantom Menace has a blue lightsaber blade. And then in Attack of the Clones, Samuel L. Jackson knows that there's going to be this massive fight scene, and he knows he's going to be in the theater, and he knows he wants to be able to quickly find himself. So he goes to Lucas and is like, George, can I have a purple lightsaber? And George goes, yeah, sure.
Pretty much, like they actually have this
Gorgeous.
on film when they were out of the blue. Samuel L. Jackson asked George Lucas, "So can I have a purple lightsaber?" And George Lucas is with a straight face goes, "Well, the Sith had red, and Jedi have blue and green. So can I? I guess." And he
Sure.
just, why not?
This is when the sequel trilogy was coming out, but I know that he had a conversation with, I don't remember which of the two directors it was, but he was like, "Hey, is Mace Windu alive?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, sure." And like that was good enough for him. He was like, "Works for me." Like, "Hey, can Mace Windu be alive?" The guy was like, "Yeah, all right." Like,
But that's
all I need.
and like
It's so weird to think about it because like you have to play this canon on the fly sometimes, and then yeah, sure, why not?
Erase
So-
parts of it, you know.
well, but here's the thing. Like there's so much stuff that is written in the era of like from Splinter of the Mind's Eye was the first
Yeah,
movie,
and
right?
that's
And so and Lucas like erases it in Empire Strikes Back. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens in Splinter of the Mind's Eye that Lucas is just like, well, whatever. Because
well, and
Because
because
reasons.
until he puts it on film, meh. That's sort of the take of it.
and also like the because reasons thing is really important because Lucas isn't trying to make a documentary. He's not trying to portray a history. He is doing a story that is heavily archetypal, that is built out of tropes from dozens of stories from all over the globe with a Star Wars paint job.
Yeah.
With scenes here and there that are like, oh, I really loved this movie. Yoink. Bunk. We'll just install that here. That's going to be a nice little second act thing. And paint job. Like, if you think about Attack of the Clones, we have something that is like adjacent to Orpheus and Eurydice. We have a noir radio detective drama. And, like, it's like the plot to get the clones discovered. There is an assassin who is hired by a bounty hunter who is hired by Count Dooku, and the bounty hunter just so happens to be the base for a clone army that started a decade ago. Like, there's
Some leaps there.
it's like there's a whole bunch of things that it's like no. If you actually explain what happened, it doesn't make sense that it worked, and it doesn't make sense why the Jedi were like, oh, this is handy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Like we should enter
I feel
Akbar
like I
Gif.
would like that movie a lot more if there wasn't that weird, awkward romance.
So
He's got to protect a senator. There's an assassin out to get her. That's a bad egg. Like,
Yeah.
it is absolutely hackneyed, but I love it.
Oh, yeah.
it's
Not the romance,
also
just the movie.
if the whole point is that when you get to the end, you feel bad for Anakin and disappointed in him, but you don't feel angry at him. Like that's the whole
true.
point,
That's true.
right? And
That's
so
pretty successful, I would say, relatively.
Yeah, he's got the anger, and that anger
Like,
leads
for the-
to hate, and that
for the-
hate leads to
he-
suffering.
for the
Not
audience, like it's like the audience, and based on comments that I get in my content all the time,
Sure.
um, I think
are you
Anakin
like-
is responsible for his own choices. But what about Mace Windu?
What about it?
I'm
Are you
more worried about the
insinuating
fact he slaughtered all the sand people.
He went to his happy place. He harvested some sunflowers.
But it's like so, like every step of the way. So there's some people that like they're watching Anakin's story, and the Tuscan scene is the moment where they're like, all right, I can't fuck with this dude anymore, right?
Yeah, fair.
And most of us saw the movie after having seen the original trilogy, and so we experienced the prequels as I know how this is going to end. I am just waiting for the part where the train crashes into the airport.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mhm.
it's like you're watching it, waiting for the train crash, hoping the train crash isn't going to happen, and then it happens, right? But there are other people that experienced it linearly, and so they saw the prequels first, and then the original trilogy second. And then there's other people that experienced it in yet a different way, where they saw the animated Clone Wars first, and then the prequel movie second, and then the original trilogy after that.
I do like the way that the animated Clone Wars developed Anakin's character a little bit more,
Oh,
where I
much so.
actually
Yeah.
felt bad for him and I realized like what he was going through versus just the Clone Wars movie where I'm like, why are you doing this? It doesn't make any
See,
sense.
and for me, it makes me hate him even more. Like how many times did he put his student in a position to lie to his superiors for him?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's true though.
He
Like,
met
that's-
Tom
it's like-
Krell. He should have known better.
As a martial artist who has been an instructor of people who become instructors, like that's like Anakin does so much shit in the animated Clone Wars that I would throw someone out of my dojo for doing. Like the
That's
animated
true.
Clone Wars for me makes him worse. Like
I guess I wasn't viewing it as him being a bad teacher, but he is. It was more of like, oh, I understand like the environment he's growing up in and what's happening to him. But yeah, he's terrible to Ahsoka. Like you
Well,
should
he
not
had,
have
like-
a child.
Carte blanche. He had like as much power as anyone else in that army, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he was so highly regarded, and yet he continues to make the same bad choices over and over and over again.
and this is the other thing. And Kate, if this fucks stuff up for you, I apologize. So in Revenge of the Sith, he's having the conversation with Palpatine where he can't lie to himself anymore about how insidious Sidious is. Okay? Like he has the conversation with Palpatine where it's like, oh fuck, you're the cause of all of this, right? The animated Clone Wars is the story of all of the death that Anakin saw. Like all the people that Anakin knew that died because of what Palpatine did.
Okay,
And then
yeah.
Palpatine chooses to save, and then Anakin chooses to save Palpatine.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Like that's go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I don't necessarily like the animated one because of Anakin. I just like it because
It's easier
it
to
gave a little
empathize
bit
for,
more depth.
like-
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
a little more
And
depth
sometimes
and
you
a
need
little
that,
bit
yeah.
more understanding.
Well, and even Kenobi's show, adds a little bit more depth even on top of that, right? So
Yeah.
like they've definitely tried to like layer him to make him a more humanistic character, I think. And I think
Murdering
they've been
innocent people to pull Kenobi out of the you remember the snap?
Yeah.
You remember the snap? I remember the snap. Like that was like,
Yeah.
and then people are still, but Mace Windu.
Mace is obviously the problem. And like, I mean, like, do I understand how like Mace's part to play did have a bit of an effect on him? Sure. Okay. Maybe. Like, I could entertain that argument if I needed to.
How many martial arts movies have you seen where the villain is the dude that thinks they're supposed to be the master, and then they're not the master? So then they go on a killing spree and demonstrate that they're not the master. Like it's fucking Kung Fu Panda. Like it's like
Our
Yeah.
battle
Anakin
will be
is Taiwan.
legendary.
like
Yes.
Right.
Yes, he is. Oh my God. I need to see this now.
Oh,
It's like the Muppet effect, but I need to replace all characters with Kung Fu Panda characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
We
as
need that
I got older too, I started to understand the tropes that I was seeing a little bit more in movies. So as a kid, I was like, I don't understand why Anakin did that. I don't really get it.
this seems
And then as
dumb.
I
Why
got
does he want to be a
older-
bad guy?
Right.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I was like, oh no, he's getting rid of people that stand in his way of power. That's what's happening.
he doesn't become Lord Vader for nothing. That's the Lord part.
All right, so I posted this video today. All right, so it's about blood. Okay, so you make an offering on the altar to ask favors from the gods. Right, this is like one of the oldest ideas in fiction. Is that to gain a favor, you make a sacrifice. Okay, all right. So in Anakin's pursuit of power, everyone that believes that there is good in him are the people that he either directly kills or he destroys their life. Because that is what he is sacrificing on the altar. It's not just them. It is also any evidence or like anything that could appeal to the good in him.
Yeah.
Oh, ouch. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Well,
that hit hard.
He doesn't really love Padme, you know. Like, I know this isn't just a retrospective on Anakin, but like, you know, he doesn't, because if he did, he would behave differently. Like,
Yeah.
you know, he thinks he does. I think I do.
He
I do
believes
honestly
very
think-
firmly
I
that
think
he
he
does.
has an infatuation. There's a
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
big difference between infatuation and love, too.
Yeah, true.
And this comes into my favorite Star Wars discussion to have on the internet: attachment.
Oh, yes.
But
Yes.
Master Alan, I've heard you have to get rid of your attachments.
You keep on using that word. You know, I don't think it means what you think it means.
You can have no attachments.
So,
Zero.
like, so what everybody thinks that non-attachment is what the Sith do. What non-attachment actually is Jesus. and so like some of the easiest parables of non-attachment to like give people access to the no, this is how it's supposed to work is stuff like the prodigal son, right? And it's like, no, Dad, like I have been here. Why does he get this big party? Why is there this big celebration for him? And like I was the this, I was da 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 da. And it's like, no, I love you guys, and I'm happy that he's back because I love everybody, and I'm excited about that. It's not that you don't get this; it's that we get to celebrate. You know, it's the Good Samaritan, where it's like, oh hey, there's this prejudice about me that we lose in our modern culture about like who Samaritans were and like all this kind of stuff, and they are going to do this good thing that these other people that are supposed to be good people didn't do because. Like that's what non-attachment is the like I am going to save somebody's life even if just a couple of moments ago they were trying to kill me because now they are in a precarious position and the only way that somebody like that they cannot die is if I save them. And so rather than stepping on their fingers one at a time and laughing at them as they fall into the lava, I'm going to pull them back up.
Absolutely. No,
Because
I think that
like, and so an attachment is something you can't let go. Anakin couldn't let go. And so whether we want to call that love or if we want to call that infatuation or whatever, like it's whatever word we want to use, it's Anakin couldn't let go of her presence in his life. And so then he was willing to become a school shooter.
Rough,
not wrong.
but not wrong.
But not
The
wrong.
younglings, I believe.
Mhm.
Kanan
Yeah, this
Jarrus.
all is in like weird
Yeah.
terms of because we talk about the Asian influence, right? And so I always thought of the Force like Buddhism because that's kind of a lot of
Because
that.
the Jedi
seems
are
to be
Buddhist
influenced.
coded.
Yeah, they're Buddhist coded.
Like,
But violent Buddhists, which
There's
I mean,
some-
there is
there's-
a
there-
concept
well, and there's some-
in Buddhism where you commit violence in order to protect yourself. But
and
sorry.
like it's the Japanese flavor of Buddhism as opposed to like the Indian flavor of Buddhism, which is like a little bit different. You know, it's like, but that's because Zen was basically Japanese people in power wrapping a samurai paint job around Buddhism. Like it was like we are going to marry our values with the values of this thing that's really popular, and like it's like it's that brand of Buddhism because like Japan, if your group was in conflict with another group and you lost, there was nowhere to go. Like it wasn't like China where you could go and hide someplace where it was just harder to live, but you could still live. It wasn't like India where there was some of the same thing. Like in Japan, if you lost, there was nowhere to go. There was the ocean and there was mountains. And so like it's like conflict, like the civil wars in Japan were super different from the civil wars in China because like the limitations of space just caused certain like cultural things to happen where it was like, no, we're going to fight to the last person because if we don't, we're all going to die anyway.
I never
because
thought of it that way.
Like you don't have enough food to feed all your people. That's why you want our space. And we don't have enough food to feed our people. And so if like we have a war, then some of us are just going to be put to the sword because there's already not enough food. Like
I mean, it's even so much as like very Anakin-esque in this way. Like I know Nobunaga Oda on the way to Kyoto asked permission to go through a rival, warlord's territory, and the guy was like, "Yeah, no," and he was like, "Okay, well, I'm going to do it anyway." And then they were fighting, and once they were defeated, he continued his march to Kyoto. But it was literally like that simple. He was like, "Hey, we're just on the way to the capital. You don't mind if
I'm just going to cut through. Like, I have no beef with you. We're going here."
Yeah, and the guy was like, "No," and it's like, "Okay, well, now we're fighting," and that's.
Okay, I do find friends. We're fighting.
Now. Yeah. We were neighbors, but now we're enemies. So.
Option 1, you let me walk down the road. Option 2, I set your city on fire.
Yeah.
And then walk down the road.
Option 2, fine, okay.
Yeah, I guess cowabunga it is. I do find it kind of interesting because I've always seen kind of both Zen Buddhism and Nichiren Buddhism in the Jedi, and I think that's very interesting because those are kind of two. I don't want to say competing sects, right? But like.
Very different philosophies.
Yeah, and it seems like George Lucas was kind of like, I like this. I mean, much like he did with the rest of his films, right? He was like, I like this and I like that.
Well, and there's a ton of Sikh influence as well, which is a sort of a warrior culture that is like very much like what the Jedi are supposed to be, what the Jedi are trying to be, where it's like very much like in service of the community, in service of other people. But also like being able to be dangerous, because if you are not capable of being dangerous, then like you're not a threat, right? Like it's that choosing peace is different from being powerless.
And I do talk about him a lot, but I'm going to tell another story about Nobunaga Oda. He's one of my favorite people in history.
Obsessed.
But I am so obsessed. I'm such a fanboy. It's terrible,
though.
honestly.
I mean, we haven't gotten to the level
Nobunaga.
So
okay,
he's a terrible, awful man, but God, he's fascinating.
It's like Genghis Khan, right? Like it's one of those things where it's just like terrible human being, despicable human being, amazing and brilliant and.
I mean, like he had the idea at the time, right? He was trading for guns, of course, from the Portuguese and from the Dutch and from pretty much anyone who would sell him guns. Satsuma hated him for this, but he eventually decides, hey, these temples, they got a lot of gold. That's kind of weird, isn't it? What? I could use some gold. I need some more guns. So he would start ransacking temples. I mean, like we've got historical documents of him going through and just taking out, Buddhists and whoever else, because the temples had the money at the time.
And the temples had warrior monks at some point because they were like, we're getting Zack because we can't.
I mean, you would have to, right?
Yeah,
and
that's just the thing we did.
Much as you said, right? Like choosing peace is something very different from
being harmless.
Exactly. And I think these monks, obviously they couldn't withstand probably the might of the armies that were faced against them, but like
Tai Chi, good at many things, bad at stopping bullets.
True.
But good at all kinds of things. Good at all kinds of things. Bad at stopping bullets.
Yeah,
Very
unfortunately,
true.
I'm not at that point yet.
This was also discovered in China after the Communist Revolution.
Their history.
Kung Fu, good at so many things. Bad at stopping bullets.
Very much so.
AK-47's very effective against Kung Fu.
Yeah,
Who
and
knew?
see, if they didn't have guns, China totally would have won that one.
Well, no. So every successful revolution in the history of China started in the martial arts schools. So after the Communist Party successfully took over, the very first thing they did was go to all of the martial arts schools and say, "All right, you work for me now, or I have these gentlemen with AK-47s."
Yeah.
And a whole lot of people chose AK-47.
Yep.
It's so sad.
It's so
like
Our Grandmaster, actually, Grandmaster's Grandmaster fled China during that period.
Yeah. Well, that's like if you're learning martial arts in the United States, it's like
Yeah. It's because something like that happened.
Yeah.
It's because somebody chose to leave China instead of getting shot.
Yeah.
And we're kind of glad he did, but at the same time, it sucks he had to make that choice.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So anyway,
Lightsabers.
Lightsabers. We've been really good.
We've been really good about that. Ironically, though, I think they're all still linked.
I will say, so one of the reasons my favorite of the original trilogy is Return of the Jedi, and the reason why I like it so much is kind of the philosophical ideas that I see in the movie, and that of Luke creating his own lightsaber, that of him, showing up with a green lightsaber, which I mean, obviously was revolutionary for the time, and that was pretty commonplace. But
Yeah,
I thought it was so
the
cool.
Symbolism for that one in a bit.
Am I jumping the gun here? My bad.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Keep going.
I like my
just
version of the
like
story
there.
personally. So yeah, right.
I just think it's so neat, right? Like I understand that the Hoth scene's really cool. I understand a lot of people like Empire, and I recognize why that is the case. But I love the idea of him creating this lightsaber to sort of signify his ascension, right? He's no longer this dewy-eyed farm boy. He's now a Jedi. He's like his father before him, and something about that symbolism just hits me where I live. I just love the idea of him having like met up with these people, gone on these 2 adventures, and then now he's like stepping forward, kind of in a new chapter, right? Being like, "Hey, look at me."
He's not using Excalibur anymore. He is now using his own sword that he forged using the star iron that he found, like his
Space sword.
And that green lightsaber is so
Yes.
iconic. Just like,
Very well so.
it makes my heart so happy to see it.
Come flying out of R2, man.
I felt a little sad when I found out why they have a green lightsaber. I've been like, you know what? No, I like the other story first.
See, and like I like my version of the story. You may like it. You may not. We'll see. So if you've looked at the Luke Skywalker lightsaber on the website, something that I don't have demonstrated in the photos, which I need to update at some point. So like there's a deleted scene from Return of the Jedi where originally they had this scene of him in Yoda's hut doing the finishing touches on his lightsaber before the big set piece battle where the lightsaber gets revealed. And George Lucas was like, no, this is better if it's like a surprise. And then somebody was like, well, George, aren't people going to wonder where it came from? Nah, fuck it. It's a good surprise. We're going to keep it a surprise. But so
I love that, actually.
it's George Lucas. Anytime somebody said, aren't people going to be confused? Nah, fuck it. Like, but so the little control box has this panel that he slides into place, and it makes a little click, and that's when he's done with the lightsaber. And so underneath it, there's this little circuit panel underneath the panel that has the gold and black stripe. And so mine, you can slide it out of the way and have it display that little, and it's just and then you can be just like you, Luke. You can slide it back into place before you turn the thing. I'm just saying, if that's something that would make your heart happy, or if like there's an 8-year-old inside you that
just did. He's
like,
here.
Just imagining that like caused you joy.
A mine? Did I hear that right? A mine?
What? No.
On mine, I think on his.
Oh,
like his.
Oh, okay.
Not like a mine.
Not like a mine.
No, the Luke Skywalker lightsaber that is available at levelupsabers.com, the only lightsaber guaranteed better than a stick, has that little, and then you just.
It's like click.
So it doesn't come
okay.
with mines.
Okay, it does not come with a mine inside of it.
That you have to pay extra for. That's the premium package. No, I'm lying.
Yeah, I don't sell
Wow.
kyber crystals yet.
I can't believe I did not. That just
Kate,
like
you got the wrong. You
It's
got
11:40
You were
my
watching
time,
the
it's
wrong version of Return of the Jedi.
Well, most of us haven't seen that version of Return of the Jedi because we've been watching
it's a
bootlegs of the
thermal
movie.
detonator.
It's a
I should make
bootleg
those.
But yeah, so like production wise, the reason why they had that green is because Tatooine's a desert, and so they film in the desert. And anyone who's gone to like major deserts and such, sky can get blue real fast. There's very little water, very little clouds.
And the
so
technology they had to do the lightsaber blade at the time, they couldn't
Yeah.
make the blue bright enough that you could see it. And so George Lucas is sitting there and he's watching the force kick and he's looking over at the editor and it's like, this is it. This is our best take of this. How many, like, this is it. That's our best. Show me the other one again. Let me see the other one. God, he's even farther away. All right, show me the second one. And then somebody walks in. Mr. Lucas, what does a green lightsaber mean? What do you mean, what does it mean? I'm sitting here looking at a foot this far away from a face, and you want to know what a green lightsaber means? Yes, Mr. Lucas. What does it mean? I don't care. Show me the first one again.
I'll fix it later, I guess.
I do think that's very interesting too, because I know that a lot of people like to ascribe certain meanings to the color of lightsabers.
And because that was
And
something that
that's
was.
canon with lore and such, and we'll get to that one. But in the beginning,
Is it canon? I don't.
Not all of them, no.
Not even a little.
Your mileage may vary on all of those definitions on that.
So like the color meaning thing is very like people have ascribed meanings, but there isn't anything written in stone, right? Everything's written in pencil.
Yeah.
And some of it's not even written; it's just assumed because of visual context, without any like. And that's
in the video games, though, with customization,
It's fan
make it
fiction
even
right
worse.
now.
Yep.
It feels very Zodiac coded to me. Not to say that if you believe in astrology
It's a thumbprint.
or whatever,
That's all it is.
it's just like, well, I've got a yellow lightsaber because I'm such a Libra. And it's like, yeah, that tracks. Okay, fair enough.
It's a thumbprint. The
My-
blues are not always the same blue. Like even in
Yeah.
the animated Clone Wars, like everybody, not all the blues are the same blue because it's a fingerprint. That's all it is. It's yours because that rock talked to you and you connected to it through the Force, and it's a certain color because reasons.
Yeah.
I was like, the online test told me I should have a orange lightsaber, and I'm like, no. My lightsaber is going to be cyan. Thank you very much.
I know I'm a cyan at heart. Okay, internet test. I love that though. I mean, yeah, because like,
But green does have a weird meaning in the films because like unlike blue, which is used by all the Jedi, green is used primarily by masters. You have to be almost everyone with a master rank.
Ahsoka goes in reverse.
Yeah, Ahsoka goes in reverse on that one. Yeah,
And that's again, it's like, no, it's a thumbprint.
yeah.
Everybody's
Ahsoka goes in
different.
reverse, and Ahsoka gets a white one at some point.
She
But
goes
the white
green, blue, white.
The white is by purifying a red lightsaber, correct? That's the only way to
Right.
do it? Okay.
so far until they change it again.
Until they
It's in
change
pencil.
it again.
Yeah.
I guess now's the time to talk about the colors for that one at this
Yeah.
point. So here's the thing with the colors. The colors are being
Meh.
a little arbitrary. They're thumbprint. They're
Meh.
your Zodiac. But they are fun to talk about.
But Mr. Lucas, what if there's a difference between green and blue? Will that get you out of this room so that I can choose a clip
Yeah.
and we can like? Yes. Then go pick something. All right, show me the first one again.
Is orange?
We can't reshoot this.
I couldn't find anything on orange, okay?
Is orange the apprentice Sith saber?
It's supposed to be
No.
for like safety, protecting the galaxy kind of thing.
Sure. Aren't they all though? Except the red ones?
They are.
Like, oh, sorry.
I'm like, when I got that
Shmeev
test
Lore, if you're
result-
using a blue lightsaber, we only accept orange lightsabers here to protect the
When I
galaxy.
got that
Once upon a
test
time.
result, I was like, so I'm a traffic cone?
That's why it's orange.
Air traffic controllers, like,
Yeah.
all right.
Safety.
No, those are red and
orange.
green.
Oh, you're right. My bad.
You're at conflict with yourself.
You're a master, but you're also a Sith. That's how that goes through.
The guards in the temple, though, if I'm correct, they have yellow lightsabers for the most part.
Well, so like every time they've been depicted, they have yellow, but like there's not any like here's why. It's just like that's how they're depicted, and so
Yep.
it's one of those things where people are like, yellow lightsaber. That means security guard, or like is it like has anybody read Golden Compass? Does anybody remember those?
Yes.
But
Okay, so
Oh,
in-
you've read Golden Compass Classic.
In Golden
Classic.
Compass, you have an animal that follows you around that until you are old enough, its shape changes all of the time based on whims. And then later on, you get older and it becomes permanently an animal of some type. And that strongly influences what job you get as an adult.
Hmm.
here's
The
my
Daemons,
resume.
right?
Enjoy my
Is that what they're
bear.
called? Daemons?
Like, you have a German Shepherd. You're going to be a mall cop. Like, or, like whatever.
It does kind of reminiscent of the cutie marks from My Little Pony, right? Where it's like, oh, you've got a hammer. Guess you're a carpenter. Go build stuff. Like, you got a German Shepherd. You're a mall cop. Like, oh, what color did your lightsaber turn, son? Yellow? Well, sorry, you're a temple
Red.
guard.
Like,
Rarity in that was always my most confusing part. I goes, you got Rarity has like 4 gemstones because apparently she's really good at a spell that I didn't get to see until like a season and a half in.
Much
But
like
she does
everything.
clothing. She's like, I guess, sure.
Much like the Golden Compass, much like Star Wars, much like My Little Pony. It's all just like doesn't make sense because it doesn't have to.
That's one of the things I was wondering about too, is like with the lightsaber colors reflecting your inner person. Well, we have like, as people, we have duplicity, which is the inner person and then the person we project. which color is the lightsaber projecting?
It's really difficult to follow the fight if both sabers are the same color. So creating a way for the two lightsabers in conflict with each other to be a different color makes it easier to understand what's happening. And so part of the reason for yellow for a temple guard is yellow contrasts really well with blue, green, and red.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a
So, like,
character
right
that their lightsaber might end up fighting any of those. And so like it contrasts really well. So it's a convenience. And so like understanding where like why the decision gets made from like a logistics standpoint makes it a lot easier to be like, oh, it's just because reasons. And that's okay. Cause it's not like, it's never trying to be a documentary. It's never trying to be a history. It is always like some of the new TV shows are trying to be a little bit more like documentary style, war movie style, things like that. Like Andor is trying to be a documentary in a certain, to a certain extent. Right. Whereas like, the sequel movies are not the original trilogy, the prequels, they're not, they're operas. And so like operas, like things are heavily troped. People do stupid shit for no good reason. Weird things happen to progress the plot because the characters don't. And so you need something to fall from the sky that progresses the plot. That's what it is. And so if you need Star Wars to make sense, there's too much shit that doesn't make sense. Like it's like blaster bolts travel slower than a major league fastball.
Also, why are some of them blue and some of them red? But it's reverse order for
And green.
That's true. Yeah.
But stormtroopers are so accurate via Obi-Wan Kenobi standards.
They're in space where there is a fuck ton of space and things are really, really far apart, and they are using weapons that travel significantly slower than bullets against each other. You have an empire that is trying to be in control of all of the resources in all of the galaxy, and they invent a weapon that takes a planet where all of the resources are conveniently located in a place where it is easy to harvest them, and turns that conveniently located lump of raw materials into an asteroid belt where now it is significantly more difficult to harvest all that stuff, and you obliterate all the life that could have been turned into a slave population to do the work for you. Because reasons. And the reason is because the Death Star needed to be like the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
And that's like, and so like with Star Wars, it's like as soon as you ask one layer of question, you get to because reasons. Like you ask one layer of questions and sometimes there's like an answer, and then you get one more layer down because reasons. Like we needed it to look a certain way. It was an homage to this film. There was this logistical problem with filming that we needed to solve, and this was the easy solution. Like if the Temple Guard's lightsaber was pink, for example, right, instead of white and gold, like it'd be black and pink. It'd be gold and pink. Like it would be two colors that contrast.
And they would
Black
be
Pink
mean
Temple
girls.
Guards.
And they were pink.
Blackpink Temple Guards. They're in your area.
Because it's got things are they're archetypes rather than people, and so then there's all kinds of stuff that it's like, well, it doesn't need to make sense. The story needs to keep moving.
Yeah.
And that's such a like, and so the lightsaber colors, like blue means more scholarly, green means more capable of battle or more willing to do battle or whatever. Yellow means that you protect the knowledge. You're a protector. You're a defender. You are keeping the knowledge safe from people that would abuse it. Red means that you had so much anger or so much sadness or so much pain that you funneled it into a rock that is kind of sentient and twisted it into something that you then used for selfish gains. White means that somebody else did that to a sentient rock. You stabbed them through the heart and took care of the rock until it got better.
For those in the wanting to know the order of that's the order: blue, green, red, then white.
Some people do that twice because they have two lightsabers.
Oh, it's not a good day for that.
Did they have to stab two people, or did they luck out and find one?
It was one person with two, and they stabbed that one through the one heart because it wasn't a species that has two. Because he's in the TARDIS, which is bigger on the inside, much like a kyber crystal, which, although it is small, has very, very big feelings that it reaches out to you with to say, pick me, I'll make an excellent lightsaber for you. Because the kyber crystal chooses the Jedi, Harry.
Yeah, that's about right.
Because reasons. And did they give us on one planet? Yeah, just the one planet that has all the kyber crystals you could need.
Except for
That's fine,
sometimes
right?
not.
Yeah.
On this question of saber colors, shouldn't Grievous's lightsabers all turn red when he gets them? He captures them from other Jedi.
Yeah,
but-
Grievous messes up the whole thing. Okay.
He is more machine than man.
Yep.
This is one of the things that Acolyte gives us, is like an actual like demonstration of this is how you get a red crystal, because it's been talked about in books, but it's also been talked about a lot of different ways. And it's you take the anger and the pain and the sadness and whatever, all of these emotions that you cannot let go of, so that you can hold your grudge, or so that you can hold your ambition, or so that you can protect your insecurity from other people or whatever. And you funnel that into the crystal that was once something else, and you change it. And it's red because it bleeds.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Put all of that awful, and you put it into a rock without letting it go. And then you and the rock go throughout the galaxy together. It's like your pet rock.
Mm-hmm. You know what? Bringing that back,
Grievous
that's very
just
70s of them.
That kills
Pet
people.
rock can't influence his pet rocks.
To answer your question earlier, Kate, Grievous was on the council, but he didn't attain the rank of master.
Oh no.
That's why his lightsaber didn't turn red. The Sith,
And
Palpatine was like, sorry, man. Nothing we can do about it.
and Mace Windu had to draw 20 cards because this is Uno, right?
True. It was also Mace Windu's fault for General Grievous.
Darn it, Mace.
Just always screwing things up. That Mace Windu. I do kind of love the idea, speaking on Grievous, like, I do love the idea of, like, a guy who's just like, these are neat. I want more of them. Like, look at my robot hands. I got 40 lightsabers.
It makes him the perfect animated villain.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And the perfect foil in a show where Jedi are your hero.
Yeah.
Because he can't he can't be a Jedi, he can't do Jedi stuff. But because he's mostly a machine, he can do all of this other stuff that makes him a problem.
And he was great looking in Attack of the Clones, but like in the Clone Wars animated, it's so much better. Like it's just incredible the stuff they do with him.
He's comic relief in the movie, and he is not comic relief in the show. And that's an important like
He's scary in the show. Like a Jedi hunter. Oh my gosh, yeah.
And like they use him in the story as a boogeyman in many, many ways. Like he is like, and like that's an important aspect to his like mystique. In the movies, he never feels that scary.
No.
Like there's a handful of moments in the Kenobi fight that it's like, oh man, but like you always like, in addition to the fact that you know that Kenobi makes it to the next movie because you've seen it like many, many years before you saw this one. Like
spoilers.
It's like the sequel poster to Rogue One they came out with. It's this movie called A New Hope. I don't know. You guys are gonna love it.
I was hoping they'd do a sequel.
Yeah, it seemed like there was like a lot of questions unanswered at the end of Rogue One because Grievous is the Act 1 villain. He doesn't. It's like the Jedi that Sidious dusts in Revenge of the Sith. Like when you watch the movie, you don't know any of their names. You haven't seen them do anything, and so you're like, oh man, those guys are chumps.
Yeah.
And then you watch the animated show, you learn all their names, and it's like, no, Kit Fisto! Like,
Kit Fisto. Yeah, I feel like the animated did kind of like, it made it better, but it also made it worse because it was like, hey, here's my tragic backstory. Not really, like Kit Fisto is fine, but like, hey, I'm going to give you this thing to hold on to so we can get that drink later. And you're like, cool, he's going to make it. And it's like, oh, he's not going to make it. Like,
Plo Koon dies in a spaceship.
I know, it's so sad. It's so sad. It could have been so much cooler.
Could have given him a Yoda moment, Like,
Yeah.
Or like an A2 Brute would have been really cool.
Any moment, really, at all.
Also true, yeah. Lines, in fact, would have been nice.
Just throwing it out there. We're just taking notes.
Spitballing.
He's just a guy.
Yeah, so much more than that, though.
But not at the time that they made the movie.
That's true.
Like, that's the thing. And then like, right, I'm just gonna segue us to something entirely unrelated. Everybody ready?
Do it. Yep.
Okay. So my favorite lightsaber fight scene in all of Star Wars is the throne room in The Last Jedi. So it's not even technically a lightsaber duel.
Well, because they're not technically using, the guards aren't technically using lightsabers.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's my favorite one.
It does
good.
look super cool.
It's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
good.
This is
So
the
good.
choreography is incredibly complex. It is the most Asian style fight scene. Like it is the most Chinese opera fight scene that they've done in a Star Wars movie.
Yes,
Like
I
it is
agree.
right.
It's beautiful.
But the sequels in general are able to add a heaviness to lightsaber combat that they were never able to do before because the technology wasn't there. So like when Kylo Ren swings that lightsaber, like it looks like it's gonna break a brick wall. Like it looks like it doesn't look like it's going to. Like it doesn't look like a, if you remember like the whip from Johnny Mnemonic that was just like, and like things would just randomly fall apart. Like it doesn't look like that. It looks like a blunt force instrument, right?
Mhm.
And you feel the weight and you have this sense of inertia from it, which is like, oh, okay, like this, like there's this heaviness to the combat, that is not heaviness as though it is slow, heaviness as though it is clunky. It is like, that looks like it would suck. That looks like it would hurt,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and Adam Driver is, trained.
Fucking
So
and he's fucking
he's
ripped.
amazing.
He's a big dude. He's a super big dude. You know, he's got a football frame. Like he's a big guy.
He's wide.
But so the other technology that they have in the sequels that they haven't had in any previous Star Wars movies, with like a couple of exceptions, is that the lightsabers light up and they cast light.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so they experimented a little bit in the prequels, but they couldn't come up with something that could also sustain impact. So there's like one fight scene with Dooku in Attack of the Clones where he's got like there's a clip where he's got a lightsaber that's casting a light. But otherwise it's all just like digital paintbrush. And so it's really incomplete. The sequels, the fight scene in The Force Awakens where they're in the snow, and it's so like there's the like the glow,
Yeah.
right, and it's not digital. It's because the sabers are casting light. In the throne room fight scene in The Last Jedi, like you see the light on their faces, right?
Mhm.
You know, in the fight scene in The Rise of Skywalker, which is like the force time fight scene where they're like alternating between the ship and the ground. One of my favorite fight scenes, not just in Star Wars, but like that J.J. Abrams has ever done. Mostly J.J. Abrams has done a whole bunch of like melee combat that I do not give fuck all about because the way that he films it and the way that he does stuff and other things, it's just like, okay, fine.
100%.
But like the Death Star fight scene where Kylo, gets killed, and then Skywalker rises, like that one's but there are a bunch of cool shots in it that are possible because of the technology. That it's like, that's one of those things that it's like, if you've never noticed it before, there's scenes in Empire Strikes Back and in Return of the Jedi where one of the lightsabers is casting a shadow. And you don't think about it because you don't think about it, but that doesn't happen in any of the new movies.
Yeah.
It probably won't happen
Ever again.
ever. Not
Sure.
again. So like,
Maybe
if
the
you want a
Darksaber.
different property that does the same thing, superhero films. When they first started, they had to be very, very careful. And then, even though X-Men came out before Spider-Man movies, Spider-Man had ironically the same digital and technical team that Star Wars did, or the same lead guy on there.
Lead choreographer. Yeah.
Yeah. And he reinvented camera, specifically wire work, to show how the motion of Spider-Man swinging and such is. And it's now nicknamed the Spidey Cam. But the thing is, having the camera work and the tech to do that, and having a director that could utilize... Sam Raimi was perfect for that because he does a lot of wacky...
He was ready to be ballsy. Like
He was
wanted
ready to be ballsy.
Like, yeah.
Does all this cool camera work, even back in Evil Dead 2 and such. But yeah, you get the right people at the right time, you can make magic on that. And so when we're getting newer and other series coming out for Star Wars, we're probably going to get these hard case lightsabers that will make their own light. And your fight scenes are going to be choreographed better because, as a rule, if you can keep it less digital, if you need to, the better you can make it look.
Because the more stuff you can do with the camera, because the less you have to position the green screen carefully and all the other things. Like it's like the more, the LED screen that they have, the big, like, they used it a ton in Mando and other stuff. Like it's a, so that you have a set that casts light is just such a like it's such an environmental thing that you don't think about that, like, having light sources cast light instead of having to stage lights all around. It just makes such a difference in terms of like your ability to perceive depth and stuff like that.
I think it's pretty incredible too, talking about going from the original trilogy to the sequels, right, including the prequels within there. Seeing the fight scenes change, and we talked a little bit about how initially it was sort of samurai based fighting, and Darth Vader couldn't move, so it's very, very stiff, very two note, I guess I would say. But
Four
you see
corners.
Kylo Ren, yeah, exactly. 1, 2, 3, 4, let's go. But you see Kylo Ren, rear back and bring it forward, like you mentioned. There is that weight there to his movements. I had a roommate in college who was like, "I don't understand the Jedi," and I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Well, why don't they just fence? Like this, the pommel should be the only weight. The blade shouldn't have any weight. Why don't they just,
Well, and
Dooku?
like
This is a little
using
bit
it
before Dooku.
using it like a spear would be the meta for that type of weapon. Like that would, like,
It makes no sense to swing it. It's not a slashing weapon. It shouldn't be a slashing weapon.
but then it doesn't look cool, and it's supposed to look cool.
Exactly.
So we're back to like this doesn't
I love
make sense.
The reel back, just the big heavy swings,
Lightsaber
and how that was a little bit.
spear.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, I like that. I
I mean, more of a partisan, really. I'm still waiting on a Quan Dao, but
Oh, Guan
So
Dao,
if you-
yeah.
So if you need a lightsaber spear, I have on the website something that's called the polearm kit, and it is everything you need to take one of the lightsabers, and then you attach the polearm kit to the bottom of it, and then you find any haft that uses a 1-inch outer diameter. Boom, plug in a screw, maybe 2 if you're feeling zesty, and you have yourself a lightsaber spear.
Oh my gosh.
Just tossing that out there. And if you want to do the Naginata or the Nagimaki or a Quan Dao or a Pu Dao or like, just
I did
Just
see
throwing a-
the
just
blades
throwing
you
a-
food for
have.
thought.
The blades you have there are a little bit wider that you could turn into one.
Yeah, the flat blades. No, correct if I'm wrong, you don't really recommend those for dueling, right?
they are a flat polycarbonate, and so when they fail without warning. And so they cast the light really cool and they look freaking awesome. But you do not want to do impacts because it's like if you've ever played hockey with a graphite stick, like it just like sometimes you'll just swing and it'll just be in more than one piece.
And there it goes.
There's not a warning. There's not a creaky noise. There's not a chipping noise. It's just nope. Your blade's over there now.
It's for posing like Guan Yu and then putting it down very nicely.
Exactly. Yeah. Roar blue dragon. Do the big circle.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yes. You nerds are speaking my language.
All right. So I know we got through a lot of the brief history. I thought we touched a bit on the philosophy, especially on the philosophy of creating lightsabers and such, especially with different styles and such. Because I guess at this point within the Star Wars actors and such, each of them can. Because I know Kylo Ren fights completely different than anybody else.
Oh, I love how Adam Driver fights those scenes. I'm sorry, I'm such a geek about it. It's so cool.
You could have left it at "I love how Adam Driver," and I would have agreed with you.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Everybody's thinking about the thigh grab already. It's okay.
Yeah.
We're just
I haven't
everybody's
seen
there.
For me, it's
Yeah,
like
there you go.
shirtless
See?
wide boy,
Yeah.
Yeah. I was not
I love
okay
that.
after that movie. I had a little bit of a problem.
But so the thigh grab is really important because when you watch that fight scene and you think about it in terms of the story of the fight scene, that is the moment where they are as close as they are going to get. So it starts out they're apart, and then the fight kind of twists until they're in the middle. And then after that thigh grab is when then it twists back apart. And the whole thing is, if they could be together, this is how good it could be.
Yeah.
But you don't get to have that
Which is why
because we're Star Wars fans and we can't have nice things.
Nope.
Yeah, we can't.
But how good could it be? How good could that be? How good could that
could've
thigh
been.
feel?
So good.
Pretty good.
That's why the last movie totally depressed me, and I pretend it doesn't exist.
Okay, we all have copium somewhere.
Yeah.
I will say the one regret. It's a good thing that it didn't happen, but the one thing that I will always regret is that we didn't get to see Donnie Yen with a lightsaber or some sort of light weapon.
Oh, God.
He was perfect in that film. Don't get me wrong, but God, I would love to just see him just own some stormtroopers or something.
All right, so you talked about your beef with The Rise of Skywalker. I'm only going to get into it a tiny, tiny bit. Very tiny, tiny bit.
Yeah. If we went to beefs we have with Star Wars, this would be out here for all day.
So there's things that are like, oh, I didn't like this, I didn't like that, whatever. Okay,
Yeah.
like and that's like any fandom anybody's in, that's going to happen, right? Okay.
Mm.
All right. So after The Last Jedi was in theaters, I was in Target with my mom, and we were walking by an end cap, and on the end cap there was a Rose Tico bobblehead. Mom needed a minute, and we had to walk faster because there was an Asian female lead that did not exist to be a sex symbol, did not exist to be a martial artist, did not exist to be a math nerd, was not that type of sidekick. It was just a character that looked a fuck ton like her, and was in a Star Wars movie, and now that character was a bobblehead at Target.
Yeah.
I want you to think about Star Wars for a second, and I want you to think about a movie that was inspired by Japanese cinema and how many Asian actors have been in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know when they introduced Rose, I was so happy because finally, like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
When we went to see Rise of Skywalker in the theaters, while I was watching that movie, I noticed it, but my mom didn't. If my mom had noticed it when we were walking out of the theater, like we're walking out and I noticed it. Like I noticed how little Rose was in there. I noticed how much they cut her out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was prepared for mom to have noticed it, but she was like, I really liked that. If my mom had noticed it while we were walking out of that theater, I would have never forgiven that movie or J.J. Abrams. I've got beef. I'm trying to let it go. Like, it's like, because it doesn't help me to be angry at a movie that is that old or an individual that I'm never going to meet.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think it's understandable.
Yeah.
You
But
know?
I think it's understandable, yeah, because Rose was such a good character too, and then they cut her out without reason. It's so dumb.
It's not without reason.
No.
They were trying to make a greatest hits album.
Yep.
And so the reason was because she was a character that different people all agreed that they were unhappy with.
Mm-hmm.
And so then by minimizing that character, that thing, that different, so like when you make a movie, you need as many as people as possible to agree that they like it. And ideally, you need people to like certain aspects of it so you can merchandise to them. But if there is a character that people mutually agree from different directions that they dislike, that is a really, really bad thing for merchandising and discourse, because that is how you end up with people that kind of dislike the movie deciding that they hate the movie because they are surrounded by people that talk about it in that context, because that's what people do. And so like the characters that were central characters of people's ire are characters that then get diminished because then the anger gets dispersed instead of centralized. And if you're going to make a greatest hits album, you need to not have different groups of people upset at the same thing. You need them upset at different things, and then it doesn't fuck up your merchandising money.
And we see this a number of times in the sequels, unfortunately. You know, Rose being a prime example.
Movies
There are
in
others.
general.
Sure.
Like
Yep,
just
true.
movies in general. Like that's a like, you know, it's not unique to Disney and Star Wars. That isn't. It's like that's.
Well, and even
That's what it
entertainment,
is.
right? You know, we're seeing the Witcher discourse for Witcher 4 as an aside, I know, but like same kind of thing, right? Where it's like we don't like that, and so like it's a certain group of people doing a certain set of things, unfortunately, ruining it for the rest of us. But at the end of the day,
I got myself a lightsaber.
Star Wars,
I still have to pretend that last movie doesn't exist. I'm
Star
sorry.
Wars. That's all I
But so
got.
Star Wars will be
Well, but
Star
so
Wars.
so Donnie Yen, right?
Yeah.
And so we have a Chinese actor in a principal role. In The Acolyte, we have Saul.
Yes. Yep.
He did, and like Korean actor, did a marvelous job, learned English for the role. Like
So sad we're not getting another one.
you think
Yeah.
about you think about how people talk about representation in Star Wars, and like how much imagery is taken from Japan, taken from China, taken from those philosophies and things like that, and the representation is either the Trade Federation was a trope and a stereotype and like designed to look a certain way, down to the accent, which I was glad they changed in The Acolyte, but like right down to that, and then we have three, like that's it.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, the thing that I hope for Star Wars as we continue to get the new shows is that we get get more of what we're getting with Skeleton Crew, where we've got like this wonderful cast that is so different, and like we have different really good types of representation of experiences, right? It's not just like, okay, these are kids with different skin colors. There's also like, different ways for people to connect to these characters. Like Anakin is a character that I have a lot of anger for because I experience him through the lens of a martial artist. Anakin is an incredibly important character for so many queer like individuals that grew up in lives where they were in a religion where they had to hide who they loved.
Yeah.
And
it's
like
a totally different perspective than what you're coming at it as.
And so like, and one of the things, so like, I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. The scene in Revenge of the Sith where Yoda and Anakin are in the office talking to each other. Somebody that has a whole lot of empathy and compassion for Anakin, that's the first time Anakin's ever sitting there, and that is the help that Yoda gave him. And so then they can continue to understand Anakin, and Anakin can still be someone that they love. They don't necessarily defend his choices at the end of Revenge of the Sith, but that character is not fucked up for them. I can experience that same scene as Yoda and Anakin have done this a million times, and Yoda has run out of ways to get through Anakin's skull because it's made out of fucking Beskar.
True.
And so both of those things can exist at the same time. So then both of us can have our character that means something to us. So like for me, Yoda doesn't get fucked up. For them, Anakin doesn't get fucked up. As soon as they go into the space in between, and if there is a scene where it's just like a montage of Anakin leaving Yoda's office, Yoda doesn't change for me. Anakin is fucked up for them forever.
Yeah.
And if there is a scene where Anakin finally goes to Yoda after hemming and hawing and like internal conflict and all this stuff and goes that one time, now Anakin is no different for them. Yoda is fucked up for me forever.
Yeah.
Like, and so this is the Star Wars we exist in. Like, we are going to continue to have Schrodinger's plot. Like, that's because they can't afford to lose the people, but also, like, the more shows they make, the more opportunities we are going to have to see the lives that different people have, and let them be the focus of Star Wars, and let them have a Star Wars that like really looks like them, instead of a Star Wars that looks like me. There's been a lot of Star Wars that looks like me. There has been so much Star Wars that looks like me. Maybe not the mustache, but like.
Yeah. I was really excited when they introduced more stormtrooper ladies in the sequels. Like that first movie from J.J. Abrams made me so excited because I finally got to see some female characters that were like.
And Phasma,
Phasma's so cool.
She's so cool. But yeah, Phasma was my girl.
Here comes the general.
But I think that is about it that we got, guys. Now we're way away from lightsabers. But
I have one more thing I need to say. I'm sorry. I just want to point out. I love the phrase "the Star Wars we exist in," and I think to the listeners, I would say, if the Star Wars that we exist in currently isn't the Star Wars that you want, in that you want more representation of people that look like you or who come from a similar background that you can relate to, I am hopeful that given time you will be able to see and exist in a Star Wars for you. I think that that's huge and it's necessary, and it's really, I mean, the way it should be, right? Everyone deserves to have these cool fantasies that they can relate to, these cool properties that they can point to and go, holy crap, it's like me, Everyone deserves that. So if the Star Wars we exist in isn't the one you want, hang in there. Hopefully the Star Wars we exist in will be.
And if the Star Wars that we are getting, you feel like you're missing from, I strongly recommend to everyone, whether you feel this way or not, that it is worth going into the High Republic novels and comic books.
Yes.
Because it's not like there's still some stuff that's missing, but like the amount of people that you could experience that you could learn from or are going to feel like you is like so wonderful. I went from having a lot of Jedi Masters that is just like, oh, I really like Plo Koon, I'm gonna steal some of those ideas. I really like Master Yoda, I'm gonna steal some of that stuff. My students are gonna get this one later, like all that kind of stuff. Like High Republic has given me so many people to take notes from.
Yes.
And that is like and wonderful perspectives. So
And those are the comic books you're talking about, right? Or are they the novels?
and the novels as
The
well.
novels, yeah.
Okay.
So there's one story group that is responsible for the stories of the comic books and the novels. And there are 3 phases of the High Republic. Phase 1 is sort of like the middle timeline. Phase 2 is a jump to like a prequel era of that timeline, like what happened before. So it's a flashback basically. And then phase 3 is what happens after. So you get a like set the stage of this is where we are. And then phase 2 is this is how we got here. And then phase 3 is this is what's next. And the number of characters that you get to experience go through growth or change or tragedy or joy. There's a same-sex marriage in one of the comic books between 2 characters that I absolutely adore. And it's in the comic book run from IDW.
Oh,
it's just
yes.
Like there's a whole wedding issue. You also get to meet a Jedi who is near and dear to my heart named Buckets of Blood.
Buckets, like that's their name, Buckets of
No,
Blood?
that is their war cry as they go into any sort of conflict situation. Master Torben Buck is a healer. And so as he goes into the fray, he shouts his iconic line, "Buckets of blood," because he's gonna fix the people. So like the blood is in the buckets, and he's gonna put it in the people, so that they'll get better.
Oh.
Get me my funnel.
There's a character named Geode who I absolutely adore.
Oh, Geode is also marvelous. Geode is a rock.
He's a rock. A sentient rock, but a rock nonetheless. Geode's great.
Hang on.
And the way that
sentient
Geode
like
is written is
Kyber's
fantastic.
Those are sentient like a sentient rock.
No, he's like a slab. It's like he's just a little monolith that slides around really quietly. He sneaks up on people all the time.
It's so good.
He's so good. So good.
Yeah, the High Republic does a really good job of feeling like Star Wars while also doing new things that Star Wars hasn't done, or doing things that Star Wars maybe have shied away from in the past. I've really enjoyed a lot of it. There are some issues here and there, and some things it's not perfect, but I'm really been enjoying it, both the books and the comics.
Yeah, Daniel Jose Older, you should ask him about coming onto your show. He's brilliant.
Yeah,
he's absolutely brilliant. And some of my favorite characters, like interactions and other things from the High Republic, are his work.
I've got a reading list.
So Race to Crash Point Tower has my very favorite explanation of non-attachment in any work of fiction anywhere. And it is one of the YA books from Phase 1.
Okay, cool.
I have a signed copy.
Oh, wow. What a flex. I will say the High Republic has done a really good job of making me want to read books that are outside of my reading demographic. So like the YA novels are, in my opinion, just as good as the I don't want to call them adult novels because that seems weird, but
it's the publishing distinction is like are your central characters like teen, preteen, or are they adult? That's like part of it. And what are the stakes? Right? Yeah. And so if the stakes are PG-13 death, right, then you end up in YA. If the stakes are dismemberment, torture, death, then you end up like it's like from a publishing standpoint, that's where that comes from. Right. And there's a lot of important YA themes are self-exploration, self-discovery. Important adult themes are the world sucks and there is no hope.
But they're all good. Go read them.
But you can also get A New Hope.
A New Hope, really? Yeah. Where would we get one of those?
Yeah.
Look at a video store somewhere. They exist.
Sorry, all I have is an Old Republic. Is that okay?
No.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
You need an Old Republic. Go with a High Republic.
The High Republic. Well,
the High Republic is significantly better. I feel like there's 420 of those.
Green lightsabers for everyone.
Yay!
The Old Republic, It had problems. And then the New Republic is all of the problems of the Old Republic, plus the problems of the Empire. And the Jedi aren't there to wallpaper over the cracks that are caused by people being shitty to each other. So it all just goes to shit, and there's another war in the stars.
We got
What's
Lothcats out of it.
the first book
so
in the
that's-
High Republic series? Is it Light of the Jedi?
So Light of the Jedi, and I'm going to warn you that like the whole purpose of that book is to set the stage for the fact that a massive natural disaster is causing a fuck ton of death. And so like the first several chapters, you meet someone at the beginning of the chapter, you get a slice of their day so that they can die at the end of the chapter. And it took me a long time to get past the first act of that book because I was not in a place where I wanted to read about people and their day that then ended.
Yes.
And then again.
It's
And then again.
hard to get attached to some
right
characters.
Now, I'm listening to the water margin, so that's about the same.
Right,
as what
yeah,
I'm
you know,
Okay,
listening
then
to.
you're fine. Yeah, you're great then. You were primed and ready.
You're good.
George R. R. Martin fans, you know what to expect.
Yeah. Don't
If
get
you want
attached.
if you want seconds, Kate, the High Republic will do you just right. Light of the Jedi is great for you.
Perfect.
Jump right in.
So you know how sometimes you'll get that feeling where it's just like, oh, things are going to be okay. It's all going to be all right. And you get to have that feeling just long enough to watch it all go completely to shit.
Yeah.
If you enjoy that feeling,
If you love that, I gotta recommend.
Warhammer is for you.
You're not selling this very well, guys.
The Emperor's
So,
gonna
like,
make
it's-
it.
So the first High Republic book is setting the stage for the fact that there's been a massive natural disaster, and the Jedi are having to respond to it and find out what's going on. So like the first act is just all over the galaxy, terrible things are happening, and the Jedi are having to be dispatched everywhere all at once because everything's on fire, just all over the place. And so that's what the book is sort of setting the stage for, is like this massive event that has all of these ramifications that pulls all of these Jedi in, and it's terrible and tragic and horrific, and it sets up the Jedi as FEMA instead of setting up the Jedi as like space cops.
Yeah.
And that's a really important thing. As you get into other books, then it goes a whole bunch of different directions because the galaxy is full of people that need help, and the Jedi's job is to show up and help. And so there's all kinds of like stakes and things involved. Like there's very dark mystery style stories, and there's also like kids adventure realms. So there's like it's
all over the place.
Yeah, it's all over. And I cannot recommend highly enough the comic books. I absolutely cannot. Like you get the QPs or whatever, it's just, they're so good.
And if for some reason you're not a Jedi or a Sith, lightsaber wielder fan, if you're more into I had a roommate who was into the everyday person in Star Wars. They loved
There's a lot of that in
the troopers. There's a ton of that, and it's really cool to see how this one event affects the Jedi, but then also affects like space pirates. Just throwing that out there.
Everybody,
yeah.
Yeah, it bases everybody. Who's in this?
It's not-
Everyone.
It's not all doom and gloom, Kate. I promise you. There's good uplifting parts to it. There's Geo.
No, it's good.
There's
It's
Geo.
good.
There's a whole rock.
and Zine. And
I've
Fazala.
watched enough C drama that I can get through the doom and
Oh,
gloom.
you'll be-
Buckets of blood.
Everybody's
You'll
be
dying.
fine then, yeah.
All right.
So-
So this is a good place to wrap up the show.
Fair
then
enough.
for this
Yeah, it's almost
episode.
12:30 my time. That would be awesome.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
Thank
okay.
you for-
It's okay. I've been having so much fun. I'm just very tired.
Say,
And my kids
no.
don't have school tomorrow, so
I'm glad you're having fun.
I'm glad you're having fun.
Thank you for
I'm having a
staying up
blast.
late
You guys are awesome.
with us. We
Yeah.
would love to do this again, I'm sure, if that would work for you. And
And we'll
could be Star Wars, could be something else. We could do whatever.
be anything.
I will talk martial arts anywhere, anytime.
Oh,
Fair
we've
enough.
done that before. We'll do it
Well,
again.
It doesn't sound like you're into any other nerdy things other than martial arts and Star Wars, though. So, like,
I mean, we could talk about math rocks. There's this really cool game system that I am learning called Heckin' Good Doggos. It is a TCRPG where everybody at the table is a dog.
Yes,
Yes.
I love
And
this.
you have a best friend, capital letter B, capital letter F, who is your human.
Oh, I love this.
There is another game system that I am learning that was built for the Discworld TTRPG that is being published. That is going to feature in the Better Than a Stick game, which will be on my YouTube. But
Yes.
I'm going to be very, very happy to talk about Heckin' Good Doggos. I will talk about Discworld anywhere with anybody that'll listen. It's just generally people aren't going to listen because nobody cares.
People care.
Discworld's
I need
great.
to
Yeah,
find
we
a group that will do Star Wars RPGs. I've been wanting to do that forever.
depending on what I've played 2 of the 7 systems that has ever existed. They're fun.
There's like 7 or 8 systems.
So,
I'm down.
Season 2 of the Better Than a Stick game, we are currently using Scum and Villainy, which is the Blades in the Dark, like the Powered by the Apocalypse game system. And that is our current season. I am going to be the GM next season, and I will either be using Heckin' Good Doggos or the Discworld TTRPG as the rule set that we are doing Star Wars with. Because like doing a Star Wars RPG, all you're really doing is you are taking an RPG and you are giving it a Star Wars paint job. So you just pick a set of rules. You're very George Lucas with this. Like you just pick a game system that plays the way that you like to play games.
Yeah.
And then give it a Star Wars paint job.
I don't know if you know this system, but White Wolf, Vampire
I'm
Masquerade.
familiar.
Yeah. I used to play all system. My role-playing games with that.
Yeah.
Love
it can be steampunk, it can be cyberpunk, it can be Jedi, it can be all kinds of stuff.
Like, we got Wild West and Mando, like that's everything.
Yeah. Savage Worlds is a really good one. If you've got to be if you've got to be with D&D people because it's all they're familiar with, like you could make a Jedi out of a druid, a Jedi out of a warlock, and a Jedi out of a paladin, and they all play like Jedis, and they are all in the same party, but they are not all like the same from a skill tree standpoint. Like, and it's like if you were and then if you were like, all right, I'm stuck with D&D, but we're doing DC, I want to be Green Lantern, how do I do it? Make a Hexblade.
Yeah,
you just make a Hexblade, and it's like you're Green Lantern. Like, I'm going to shoot energy bolts from my ring, Eldritch Blast. I want to make a trident and throw it at him, Hexblade.
The Cypher system is pretty good for ad hocing like properties onto it as well. It's not D&D, but it's kind of similar.
Everything can get a paint job. Yeah.
True, right?
Everything
exactly.
can get a paint job.
If there's one lesson you've learned from this episode about lightsabers and martial arts and different types of philosophy, everything can get a paint job.
Because reasons.
All right.
That works really well together. We should put that on a t-shirt.
We should. I'd buy one.
All right. Our next episode is going to be released on February 7th. So that being said, I think this is about it. And this is Gaming Theater Podcast. Logging out. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Gaming Theater Podcast is hosted, created, produced, and edited by Leo Garcia, the Geek Scorpio. Our music is A Drinking Game. Stock media provided by Stormwave Audio /Pond5. Our cover art is by Adam Parker. You can find him at ParkerGFX on Twitter. If you want to send us some money to help with these episodes, you can do so at patreon.com/gamingtheaterpresents. Want to send support that doesn't hit your wallet? Please leave a review with wherever you hear your podcasts and share our podcast with your friends. It really helps out. Thank you for listening.